Brad, product specialist here at Kinze, and we want to talk about some changes we've made to easily identify the orifices you need for the 5000 series liquid fertilizer system. We've added some enhancements to Blue Vantage to just help take the guesswork out of which orifice to use, what mesh screen, all those type of things that are needed to know via your rate and your speed to ensure that that 5000 series liquid fertilizer system performs correctly. I'm in my training mode in Blue Vantage to show you where that lives now. So if I start and press on my plant tab and I make a new planting task, on my products tab on the left-hand side, of course, in training mode, we have it configured with fertilizer. I tab on my fertilizer box, and very similar to what we've had before, this is where you can change your rate. You can turn fertilizer on and off. You can add names to your fertilizer product for, of course, record-keeping purposes. But one of the big things we've added, again, to make it easy is on this left-hand side over here, you can see where it has really an orifice box, and you can see a chart button. If you press on the chart button, it now takes us to an interactive orifice chart. The nice part about this, it takes the guesswork out of knowing which orifice to use because you then select your row spacing, again, 30, 20, or 15 inch. We're working on a 5900, for example, so we would keep it on a 30-inch row spacing. You then can select your minimum and maximum applied rates that you're going to apply. So let's say for this example, I'm going to apply 7 to 10 gallons an acre. Minimum is 7, my maximum is 10, and my travel speed that I'm going to use in this example, and again, utilizing this rate, I'm going to plant anywhere from minimum of 6 miles an hour to a maximum of 8.5 miles an hour is kind of my core range. You can see over here that the rate or the orifice chart changes. So if I, again, change my speed, you can now see, again, it goes back to a wider range. So if I change it to 5.5, 8.5 miles an hour, that's my range I'm going to plan at, and this is my rate of 7 to 10 miles an hour. We automatically give you the preferred orifice size you need for that example. So in our case, it's a 0.048 size orifice. If you look at our chart over here, you can see again the 0.48. You can see the range windows that this orifice supports. And you can also see on the left-hand side where it says use jet or remove jet, which is referring to the jet orifice in our fertilizer flow switch on the machine itself. If we look at where do we change the mesh screens, where does the orifice live, and of course, where does that jet orifice live, we've also added a parts breakdown over here. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you see where it says parts. If we press on parts, it now gives you a breakdown of this flow switch and shows you that the jet orifice lives behind our shutoff. You can see where the strainer is located on the output side, of course, of our flow switch. You then can see the gasket. It references the orifice and, of course, references that the stamped number faces out towards where the product is going. So it gives you a real good indication and breakdown of that flow switch so you know what features you are changing. We look at the picture, and of course I have an actual flow switch here. We kind of break down this picture, okay? So our jet orifice lives underneath or behind our shutoff valve. In certain cases, if we go back to our rate chart, you can see once you get in the larger orifice size or the higher rates and speeds, we need to remove that jet orifice. In our case, we don't in this example, but let's say we did because we're changing rates. If I go back to my parts picture, I can see my jet orifice here. The jet orifice goes out or is pushed out to or through the shutoff side of the flow switch. So how do I get there? Well, first we have to break down the right-hand side of the flow switch. So we have our connector here, which is where our orifice physically lives. It would live inside this cap, of course, has a rubber gasket that goes around it. Inside, of course, on every row is the mesh strainer. So by factory default, it comes with a 100 mesh strainer. If we go back to here, we can see that we should be in the blue colored ranges, which is a 50 mesh filter. So in this case, not only do we need a different orifice size, but we also need a different mesh filter as well. So the colors mean something also and is referencing the mesh size of that strainer. Once we take that strainer out, we then can take our flow indicator and pinwheel out. Again, it's just a quarter turn cap. The pinwheel itself, which of course is telling you if it's flowing or not flowing, simply comes out of that flow switch. We go back to our picture. We don't have a breakdown inside, but you take that out and then you take off your fertilizer shutoff on the other side. Okay, it's just a simple rotate. You screw that out. That red jet orifice lives inside that flow indicator. So simply take a Phillips screwdriver, go in and press out. You then, of course, can tap it to the side and the jet orifice comes out. So it's just that little red piece that lives inside. The function of this jet orifice is really to help speed up the flow of that fertilizer, especially on the low rate applications. That's why, again, you see on that rate chart where it says jet and no jet applications. The lower the rate, the more important this guy is. Again, you get into higher rates, obviously a much larger flow of fertilizer. We don't need to speed up the flow to, of course, get a good reading for is the fertilizer flowing or not flowing. So again, can go in depending on the rate. That interactive rate chart that we've talked about walks you through all that. Again, you set your rate, your speed, gives you the orifice that you want to use. Colors indicate which mesh filter you need at the flow switch. We select that orifice size, in our case, again, a 0.048 based on our rate and speed. Once we hit the checkbox, it takes us back here and says you need a 48, you need to use the jet, and you need a 50 mesh strainer. So again, just helps you identify how the flow switches and orifice should be set up to maximize fertilizer performance and, of course, cover the rate ranges you desire on all 5000 series model planner with liquid fertilizer.